On this week's edition of Tutorial Tuesday, I'm going to talk a little bit about filling vessels with pitch. What I've got here are two silver martini glasses that I'm making, and I'm going to do some hammer chasing on them. And what I want to do is fill these guys up with pitch so I can hammer on them. What I've got over here is some pitch in a pot that I picked up from the thrift store. And it's sitting on top of a little hot plate. You notice that I banged in a little pouring spout onto the pot. I just got a thin pot and banged a little wedge into it so I could pour it without it spilling everywhere. And I've got my martini glasses. The necks are filled with pitch, and so is the bottom. And I'm ready to fill the top. So I've just propped them. These are kind of off-angle glasses. So what I did is I propped the bottom up just so they sit nice and level. And when you fill a piece with pitch, you're going to want to make sure that the metal's warm first. So I've got a little torch over here, and I'm just going to heat these guys up slightly. You'll notice, I don't know if you can see it in the video or not, but you want to watch that moisture kind of get out of there. And we don't want to heat them too hot here because I've got pitch in the bottom half of them. So if I heat them up too hot, then I'm going to have a runny mess on my hands. So those are good. Those are nice and hot to the touch. And so I just want to make sure that my pitch here is about the consistency of like a syrup. Kind of like a honey, like a runny honey, kind of syrupy kind of consistency. Try and get as many bubbles out of it as possible. And one of the ways I like to do that is to pour it high. I'll kind of shake this guy out a little bit, try and get some of these bubbles out. And I will pour it high. So I'll lift this up here and pour it up like that. That way, as it's coming down in that nice thin stream, it's stretching out the bubbles and they're popping on their way down. So I'll just fill this guy up. It looks like I'm a little bit off angle here. So we can fill this down just a little bit. Pour this guy until it's just about brimming over the top. And if you go nice and slow, the edges will start to cool, so it's not going to run over the sides. And I've got actually just a little bit of a bubble going over the top. So now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And I'm using my medium California red pitch to fill this up. I really like this pitch for vessels because it melts and pours really nicely without a lot of bubbles. And same thing with this guy. I need to position a little bit differently here. Alright, now that I've got those, you'll notice I've got these pre-cut blocks of wood here. And what I'm going to do with these, there's a couple different ways you could do this. I might need to get my pitch up a little bit more again here. Is basically, you just want to pour a little bit onto here. Kind of spread this around a little bit and just use, you could use a piece of metal or a piece of wood or whatnot to do this. A little bit more. And the reason being that you're doing this is you're kind of putting a cap on it. So that way when you hammer or chase onto it, you're going to be compressing the metal and therefore the pitch is going to expand out of there. But I can put one of these guys on here, like so. I'm just going to have to be careful about touching hot pitch. You will burn yourself really easily. I've got what my wife refers to as leather paws, so I don't have to worry about that quite so much. But that's hot. There we go. So I'm just going to leave that like there. And then afterwards, once this cools, getting a sticky mess on my hands now. Once this cools, I will be able to wipe all this down with alcohol to get all the pitch off of there and have a nice clean surface to work on. This with the other side as well. And by putting the cap on there, it stops the pitch from expanding and wanting to pop out. You can tape it down, you could clamp it in between a vise, C-clamps. There's lots of different ways that you can clamp that down there. Do the same thing here. All right. That is how you fill a vessel with pitch. Obviously, different vessels, different shapes will require different techniques of how you do it. Like this, I filled up the bottom, let it cool a bit, and then I'm working on the top. Same thing with, you know, if you've got odd shaped vessels or whatnot, you're going to want to set up places to hold them in place. You might need to, you know, this one I put a piece of flat bar on the table just to angle them correctly. If you've got a weird shaped vessel that might tip over easily, you might need to prop it up with blocks or build something to hold it steady. Sandbags work great, stuff like that. But anyways, that's basically about it for filling vessels with pitch. If you've got any questions, comments, or things you want me to talk about in the future, please let me know. Have a nice day.